Well, good evening. It's wonderful to see so many people come out this evening, and it's such a good cause. Well, perhaps I should outline what we'll do. We're going to have a group of readers first, then we'll have a break for refreshments, and then we'll have half an hour of folk music, and then another group of open readers, people that want to come up and read a poem or say their piece in the mic. And our first reader of the evening will be Joan Webb. And Joan Webb came to Nelson from Winnipeg, Manitoba, to take the creative writing program at David Thompson University. She was going to stay for 8 months and go back to Winnipeg. It's been 5 years since the day she came to live here and fell in love with it. Writing is a first love that goes on quietly beneath the surface of things day by day for her. Here's Joan Webb.
I have a sad love story for you, and it's a cliffhanger. Basically, it just ran on too long and I stopped it after 4 pages. As I think about the theme for this benefit, my mind, strangely, flashes back to a hot summer's day. I am 12 years old. Where I live, we have a beautiful tank park with well-manicured green grass. I lounge across one of the tanks, climb up on its rock-hard cannon, listen to Jimi Hendrix shoot his woman down, and sneak a smoke Rothmans. My older brother, Dan, is probably setting up the family tent in the sand dunes back of the high school, ready for the acid party with its seemingly endless supply of booze. Sand dune spaces are unique because after tanks and military vehicles have played war in a terrain, it usually feels like you're on an alien landscape, like the moon. The ecological balance is delicate here, but I do not know that. I'm only interested in love. I wait anxiously for any signs on the horizon of my true love. He is tall and has some zits, and is named Glenn Teskey. Skinny, very skinny. But he is funny and plays drums in a band. He hangs out with 2 or 3 guys from the remedial class. Because we have moved again, I get lost often and don't recognize my own home. All non-commissioned ranks live in small bungalows or shared townhouses in half circles. All are painted in paint I figure Civvy Street must have rejected. Puke green, gray, dirty peach, and so on. The streets are named after generals and battles, and I know I live on Vimy Loop. My true love does not show up that day, so I climb down off the tank, ignore the skinheads off duty on the prowl, a name we gave the military guys with their short hair. And it feels so good. No babysitting, no chores, no homework. I walk over to my special spot a few blocks away of soft, sweet green grass in the shade of taken-for-granted oak by the banks of a muddy brown, fast-moving river that I never did know the name of. To do this, I walk by the officers' quarters, which seem neater and more spacious. The bungalows are larger. There are fewer townhouses and yards. Gardens and flowers are more in evidence. The officers' quarters are in one clump, separate and distinctive with their white paint and only bits of puke paint. Still, I feel uncomfortable when I walk through this neighborhood. I go down to the river to dream, and I don't tell anyone about this. I dream of how important I'll be someday. I dream of love and how perfect it could be if I was with Peter Tork, you know, of the Monkees. I still like to play with cutouts and dolls, but I don't tell anyone about that either. Since grade 7, I have been in classes filled with 16 to 18-year-olds who are comfortable with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It is a world that terrifies me, but I have already learned that I must try to make myself appear to be rock hard. I do not know then that what is so cool, man, leads Keith to suicide, leads Jean to fall apart, a nervous breakdown they call it, and leads others to running away. And drugs, man, we, the children in the 60s, welcomed it like an endless supply of everyone's favorite candy. Armed Forces brats were called, and everyone in the Civvy Street high schools hate our guts. At football games, the senior team has more fights than downs, and the girls fight with the visiting team's cheerleaders and fans, pulling hair and jumping on terrified bodies, but in a very quiet way in the washrooms. But I'm not part of this. I hear about it. You always do. This base is so tight-knit, out-of-control emotions splash in a scalding manner over the suffocating air. The lack of fresh air rules the gossip like an incestuous backwoods family clan. But I do not understand this then. I'm interested in love. The party will be raided by the military police that evening, and my parents will come down to the lockup and claim Dan and the tent. Personally, I think they should have stuck with the tent. Dan will go on to become an officer and a gentleman, but that's in the future. I'm 12 and I'm thinking about love. I'm thinking about how strange people at Woodstock are. I'm feeling like hot summer days are endless, and the world is full of mystery, full of Glenn Teskey and Smokey Robinson's Spooky Little Girl Like You, which he, Glenn, not Smokey, sang to me the day the small carnival came to the parking lot beside the small half-block long row of mall. Small khaki tents, similar to what you've seen in MASH, were set up across from the Army Green Dental and Health Clinic. It's small also. On a tiny platform, the rocks, no, not the kind you throw and hurt someone with, but his band are playing. Although he is not the lead singer, he mouths the words to the song, gazing into my eyes while smashing away on the drums. I know this for a fact because there are not too many people watching and listening to them. He is looking at me. I am blown away, man. I float home when Dan, pulling an older brother act, bullied me to supper. I can barely eat, think, or sleep. A few days later, the sky is that gray, overcast color that makes me feel dull and restless. I am hurting and smells seem metallic and garbagey. I kick at a few pieces of paper blowing across the now empty parking lot. You see, I found out Glenn Teskey has left to thumb across Canada. He is 16 and very cool, very brave. Imagine. I feel very small, can't quite get enough breath, and gulp down air like there's no tomorrow. There is a song going through my head, Janis Joplin's Cry, Cry, Baby, even though I think she's ugly and strange and I prefer the Monkees. It fits the crushing sensation on my chest.
Now, Verna Relkoff, her play reached the finals in the CBC literary competition this year, is going to read us some earth poems that she wrote on the side of the Columbia River, overlooking it, and Hanford also overlooks the Columbia River. So, Verna Relkoff.
And it's from a piece called Shot Soil. The old man stood, hands in pockets, gazed across the late sun-red barley stubble, stared at Blue Mountain cleavage where the east wind blew weather from grass, dust, and concrete lands, and fed the windmill that went round and round and round, laid his body down, and heat hissed in strings through the pebbled rust-shot soil. Listen to the soft wind hum round, hum round, hum round. A bee in swarm caught the wing that fed on the wind, and he rested. Mackie Peel, arms around his 16-year-old girlfriend, found the old man. Dead, he said, for 15 miles on a gravel road, past Pages, past Massey's, down the mountain, where the gravel met pavement, to the post office, Shepherd's General Store, and Ellis Place. His voice circled the mountain. Dead, dead, dead. The sun set and rose, and still the old man stared. Dead, said one of the neighbors. Nobody dead in this house, said the old man's wife, a kind voice. Behind it marched the German army in soft bread, none too clean. He looked dead, laid out in the bed like a corpse. He in his work clothes and the red shot soil still clinging to the cuffs of his trousers. They in Wednesday black suits and funeral faces, lined up at the end of the bed. The old woman sat in her chair and rocked back and forth. They'd come to see a dead man, to mourn, to weep, and to purge. They'd come to pay, to pray, and to comfort. They'd come to know, to fear, and to remember. Nobody dead in this house, said the old woman. They'd come like camels, carried on their backs burdens and gifts to give a dead man. Shrapnel from wars, medals for bravery, oranges from Japan, strawberries from California, mushrooms and wine, a coat of hand-woven wool, a ruby from Siam, gold stars, coins and bullion, the head of a shark, a looking glass, an urn from Pompeii, and boxes of Madeline. They carried bundles they couldn't drop, debts unpaid and the weight unlifted and untouched. Nobody dead, he's caught in a fold. And she sat in her chair and rocked and crocheted. And the room grew hotter and hotter as the sun crossed over the roof and down the windows. Outside the room, outside the house, in black cars, the whispers caught by the wind thrown by the mill, the chant, the sound, the round, the chant, he'll rot, he'll smell, just you wait, just you wait. Hank Massey plowed the fields, what's a man to do, with a team of brown horses, and the sun came up and went down, with not a cloud to stop it. The red flower dust of shot soil rose, blew across the clear cut. Only a fool would farm shot soil, so fine drive a man to his grave, so fine it turns back on itself, rolls and grows into balls no bigger than your little fingernail. Crazy Betty drove a dusty pickup up the washboard driveway 8 o'clock Thursday morning, kissed the old woman's cheeks, swept, washed, dusted, baked cookies, breads, and cakes eaten by the neighbors who stared at the still man who stared into the air where the shot soil dust played and floated, rolled and spun in the sun ray through the window. Well, old man, how are you doing? Can't lay there all day, you know. Work's to be done. Sure wouldn't mind to rest myself, though. Hot as hell out there. Worst weather in years. Don't get rain soon, the crops will die. You hear? You hear? Dead ain't dead, can't vote, ain't blue, ain't bloated, lazy son of a bitch. Suspended, don't blink, don't talk, don't swallow, don't breathe, don't shit. Dead ain't dead. Okay.
This is a piece of short fiction I wrote 2 years ago when I was still living in Vancouver. A couple months later, I made a trip up here, and a month after that or so, I moved up here to live. Anyway, it's called Point of Departure. If you were to conjure up a setting for a romance, a place not only where your fantasy would come true, but where you would want it to come true, it would look a lot like Katrina's cabin. It's a small cabin on the shore of the lake, and, while it's not practical for the long term, it is the ideal place for two people to be together, to close the door on the world. There is even more to this beach setting. Above and stretching away from the lake are dark, heavily treed mountains. To stand on the beach at night is to be dwarfed, yet cradled, by these black ridges outlined against the mauve moonlit sky. For you, this is a returning, a coming home to a place that was, temporarily, long ago, your home. You left when you did, but a few, like Katrina, stayed, and now you have seized an opportunity of cash and circumstance to see this place once more. You wend your way through the mountains for hours. This is conjuring time, this is fantasy time, and you daydream as only you know how. You have a head start with the incredible lakeside setting that awaits you. The only things missing are words, music, and timing. A Gordon Lightfoot tune flits in and out of your thoughts, and you hum a little, then break into song. You don't know the lyrics well, and you modify them, change them, finally make them completely your own. As your car dips and turns through the curves, your marvelous, monotonous voice carries your version of the dream of summer out the open window. While the car must be driven and the song is being sung, your mind nurtures the dream through its infinite course. Searching for the perfect take, the perfect draft, you go through the scenario over and over again, adding this, removing that, changing the smallest details, and then running it from beginning to end to ensure that it all meshes, that the steady progression leads to the inevitable, wondrous finale. How will it be? How will it really be? You will arrive, turning the car off the secondary highway onto the shoulder. The tires kick up gravel. The lane leads down to the cabin, and you stop, hesitate, then turn off the ignition, and you're left in an absolute silence until slowly, you begin to hear the quiet sounds around you. A selective breeze rustles through only the trees' uppermost leaves. The drone of a boat motor is heard in the distance, and then, closer and quieter, the sound of waves on the lakeshore. Still no sign of Katrina as you push open the car door, and yet you are unable to restrain your expectant smile. You walk carefully around the front of your car. From this point on, every detail is so important. It is not enough that everything will unfold as it should. It must also have the quality of being meant to be. Conscious decisions that normally have to be made in the course of one thing leading to another will be made by the unconscious at first sight. You are familiar to her as an old friend, and yet the long passage of time since you were last together gives you an air of foreignness that will put that familiarity in a new light. Your hand brushes the hood of the car, hot from the long drive, and you step onto her lawn. Through the stand of pine trees, past the picnic table, you walk onto the patio, to the screen door of her cabin. The sun is warm on your shoulders, and as you lift your hand to knock, you glance at the lake, and there she is, standing on the beach, wearing a bathing suit. Her hair is wet, molded to her skull. She is facing the lake, balancing on one foot, and using her other foot to carve in the sand. You want to see what she's drawing, you want to capture the split second of recognition and incredulity that awaits you, and you begin by walking toward her. And an osprey flies overhead, and a red aluminum fishing boat makes its way up the lake. And those mountains, of course, deep green fir and pine, above and embracing, always. So the point was reached, and the scenario became a scene, and it was played out, not as imagined, but eerily, wonderfully close, and that anticipated future is now 2 days past, and she is inside the cabin, humming, preparing to go into town, to take care of business, to attend a meeting. You are sitting outside on the patio, beside the stand of pine trees. You will continue to sit outside, bundled in a heavy sweater and jacket, trying to keep warm in this now uncommonly cold July weather. Without meaning to, you find yourself planning your return trip to the city. The screen door slams, and there she is, bending down for a kiss, a quick goodbye, and you're alone. All you want to do is enjoy the quiet, the beach, watch the wisps of cloud skim low across the mountain. You're looking forward to seeing her in a few hours. You want to spend, slowly, as much of your remaining time with her as possible. There is no time for the future. A fish jumps, flash of silver, then gone. Thank you.
I'm Timothy Shay, and I'm going to read you 3 short poems. I love the planet, and I worry about the planet, and I think quite often writers tend to worry about the planet and the life that we carry on it, and quite often our writing expresses that worry. This is called The Burning. Dead fish, sucker, I think, weed inhabiter, enemy of sports fish being the wide awake, the great leapers, those that feel the pain, the execution of the hook, most keenly feel. And sad as I walk, not for the fish, but for my walking, my non-anchored mind still dwells on the scream of disc brakes, the smell of Holocaust in the pleasant neighborhood, the ghost of Borowski gassing himself in his apartment 2 years after his auspicious release from Auschwitz, and God, I inhabit pristine wilderness. The barbarians inhabit New York and Moscow. I inhabit pristine green wilderness filled with plants and birds in their right place, singing Penelope, the weaving, the unweaving. And God, I inhabit thankfully the pristine green of the hillside with that sand that cannot count itself, the pristine wilderness, 1 instant from the burning. Dear Eric, return quickly. You moved to the wrong place. New York will soon sink in backed up sewage, Toronto in its puffery. Return to the spine of the continent. Bring your partner. I have the plans. Love, Noah. Our next reader is Carolyn Woodward, and she has...
I wrote this today because I tend to have to do things at the last minute, which I'm sure, listening to my own workshop description, is a little hard to bear, but I teach what I most need to learn, I'm sure. This is called Most of All. This is what I would miss most of all, if the ill wind picked up and blew us all into pockets of this earth cowering, for the odorless, colorless breath would cut 1,000-mile swath, would leave a stinking trail to high heaven. Our musicians would not compose, God help us, please forgive me, they'd decompose like the rest of us, and music I would miss most of all. Just music, all kinds. The grade 4 ukulele band, an Italian lullaby floating over a stone wall, the neighbor's dog Hugo crooning for his supper, my sweetheart in the shower, magnificent medley maker, a little off tune, but this I love too. The heart's the thing, ask any horse lover. I would miss horses too, the chance to know their language, beyond huffing and blowing into their astonished nostrils, this major myth. Also, dolphins and wolves, singing to each other, mindful of the species, dolphin to dolphin, wolf to wolf. Sure, you snort, they communicate, but is it music, language? As far as they're concerned, I reply, cagey. Here we are, with databases, scales, abacus, dot matrix, fax, satellites, cuneiform tablets, all liaising and accessing and screwing it all up to beat the band. No, you say, looking for a theory handy, a diversified option, a nasty bit of insider trading. Is it music? Ha! Consider the trees in the forest, chatting via pheromones, tree telephones. Listen in sometime, their quiet hum about water tables, rumors of beetles, long winters, spring runoff, the music of the spheres just overhead, the trees talk. We'll miss that music. Thank you.
This evening is Ross Klatte. He's an ex-Yankee who has lived in the Nelson region since 1970, a former journalist and an occasionally published fiction writer. Since 1981, he's been a regular book reviewer for the Calgary Herald. Ross Klatte.
Big shore places were closed now, and there were hardly any lights except the shadowy, moving glow of a ferry boat across the Sound. And as the moon rose higher, the inessential houses began to melt away until gradually I became aware of the old island here that flowered once for Dutch sailors' eyes, a fresh green breast of the New World. Its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory, enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face for the last time in history with something commensurate to his capacity for wonder. That marvelous piece of writing, that fine insight, comes at the end of a novel that, among other things, is about the sad gulf between our spiritual, our poetic sense of the world, our dream of it, in short, in which the possibilities seem infinite, and the world's gross, exploitative reality. In that respect, the passage I've just quoted can be applied to our concern here, though it is dated now. It's dated in that humankind has received one more such enchanted moment as Fitzgerald describes. It was given to the first astronauts and eventually to the rest of us in the somewhat adulterated form of the photographs they brought back. The moment came at the sight from space of our fair and finite planet when we too were compelled, like Fitzgerald's Dutch sailors, into an aesthetic contemplation we neither understood nor desired either, face to face for the first time in history with this lovely, living agate, like a child's marble floating lonely in the void, our only world, our Mother Earth, which, despite our wonder, we would strip, poison, and neglect beyond recovery.
Our next reader is Irene Mock.
I'm really pleased that this event could happen, and thank you, Timothy, for suggesting it. I wish it could be an annual event, because I'd like to encourage people who don't. I read a lot, it seems. I mean, I get up and read. And there are people here who don't. And you all have something to say about this subject, We Love Our Planet. Do you feel this way? Would there be other people here who would like to read in the future, for example? Can you clap if it's true? Do you feel it's true? Yeah, I think so. And so I encourage the organizers of this event to consider it for next year. What I'm going to read you, when we first had the concept of We Love This Planet, or We Love Our Planet, I think it was Fred said to me, well, do you have a love poem? And I think this is a different kind of love poem, so read a little introduction and then what I wrote. In December of 1949, the U.S. government deliberately released 5,500 curies of radioactive iodine from Hanford into the atmosphere. Do any of you know this? No. The exact reasons still remain a classified military secret. Although this planned release, which may have been part of a radiation experiment, was over 460 times larger than leakage from the 3 Mile Island reactor accident, information about it was not made public until last year, 38 years after it happened. In the nuclear industry, my understanding of it, such secrecy continues to be business as usual. What I'm about to read you is a tribute to people of conscience. Individuals in Nazi Germany who derailed trains carrying Zyklon B gas to the camps, and people today who, attempting to lift the veil of secrecy surrounding the nuclear peril, risk imprisonment because they place moral conscience above lawful genocide. I wrote this piece after reading a statement made in court by a woman facing 20 years in prison for her actions. I call it testimony. We were on the beach. The tide was low, and there were millions of stars. We stayed close to the retaining wall. Hidden from sight, we quietly made our way over the driftwood and rubble. It was past midnight. We walked carefully. The rocks had pieces of iron scrap protruding from them. As we approached the plant, the lights got brighter and brighter. We stopped. I had doubts about what we planned to do. I kissed David and told him I loved him. Then we cut through the fence. We got to the missile tubes, poured the blood, and hammered the metal. My hammer was small. The metal was soft. It gave way, almost melted under my hammer's lightest touch. Soon the security people arrived and yelled at us to lie down on the ground and keep quiet. The sky was very still. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce a frivolous note by reading a few letters from my misanthrope's alphabet. She pushed him into a black hole and bought a supernova for his soul. B is for bears, and also for all those people who trace their ancestry, hoping to find counts or barons or whatnot amongst them. A bear's grands and gramps add up to 4 bears. And as far back as you can go, the 4 bears are just more and more and more bears. C is for cruise. If a cruise should come down on your head, well, so what? It's just you that is dead. Next time there's a slip in its silicone chip, might the Pentagon get it instead? D is for diet and for a recipe. How much do you put in? I asked. Enough, she said. How much is that? A dash or two, perhaps? How many dashes to a pinch? I asked. Or is it pinches to a dash? A dash or two's enough, she patiently replied. Or just a soupçon more? I asked. She shook her head. I don't use metric measurements, she said. E is for Environment, Department of, and this sentence that I found in a park's leaflet. Culling is an essential element in wildlife management. Fish and wildlife folk declare if we don't cull the beavers, they'll gnaw down all the trees, overpopulate and die of hunger and disease. So it's kindness to trap beavers, quite apart from getting pelts. Eager beavers' best friends say, kill a beaver every day. What a pity that no beaver ever knew man's most ancient brush-off still holds true. No, don't cull me, friend, I'll cull you. F is for failed politician, and you can guess who. Sussex Drive beckoned, then slipped by. He still drinks scotch, but his smile is wry. And finally, G is for Gitchigumi. By the shores of Gitchigumi, by the shining big sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis and the cabins of O'Brien, Seminoff and Schultz and Pierre, and the factories and pulp mills of Macmillan, Chemicanco, Pestikill, and of many, many others all discharging toxins into Gitchigumi, crap into the big seawater.
And our final reader in the first section of our evening is Fred Waugh. He's a Governor General Award winner, and his most recent book from the Red Deer College Press is Music at the Heart of Thinking. Fred Waugh.
Published in 1972. I've always felt that the problem for me is one of being the planet, and that is, I think that a lot of our problems with the planet come from extricating ourselves from it rather than being what we are. This is a poem called Havoc Nation. How the earth dangles, eyeing over the geographical heap. Now the nation smothers, lays onto the private magic state its own fake imagination. Back off, into my own feet, and onto my own weight leap. And into her hair, love tangles in her highs, havoc sleeps. Cry havoc and slip out the dogs of war. The first woman will always be the first woman, and that is a revelation. How do you tell someone else where you live? Can you reveal it as real a place as they sometimes think you are? In the mountains near here, there is a woman who is also a crow. She is overjoyed with tears when she meets another likewise crow. Even if you knew this, could you look her up? I also know a man who is a tree, and he received a letter from a friend back east which ends, "It must be a very real world where you are. Love, George." That man is me, as well a revelation. Well, dangle then the revelation, revolution nation. Let's slip the dogs of war out your back door. Trees and crows are the ones what knows. This havoc, old havoc, will stuff it in your cry. This magic leaping tree will never be the apple of anyone else's eye. This was a book coming out of the late 60s in which I was really trying to work out a language that had to do with treeness somehow. And as a kind of a postscript to the book is this poem. This is a hard language to work out. The images keep interrupting the talking. Trees keep being pictures of themselves. My words keep meaning pictures of words meaning tree, and it's not easy to find myself in the picture. Except there is a strange familiarity. I remember something which is not a dream, and surely it isn't only in the mind. When I step out into the forest, even think it, not before, there is a distant signal of a condition or presence. I and the trees are there, in tune with it. Call it a quietness. I see trees around me, or I am looking out at a tree. The actual shape of such appearances are home, and I fall into them in a flash. I recognize it now as love. That's what goes on. Thank you.